Hey review family, keep it tight. My name is Jay Morse, the review guy, and I'm back again to bring you another video, and in this one I'm going to be continuing my ongoing monthly series, Albums I Liked. If you're new to the channel, or if you maybe are just someone that hasn't caught some of the previous installments from previous months, in this series I talk about the albums that I enjoyed the most from the previous month. Albums that have gotten 8 out of 10s or higher on the channel that I have been able to review. All of those reviews are going to be listed in the description below, and I highly suggest you to check out all of these albums as well as the reviews that correspond with them. And in this comment section you can let me know what you thought of all these albums if you've heard about them. I do this every single month. We go very quickly. You know how this works if you have been around for the channel for a while, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Go check out these albums, go check out these reviews. Let's get into it. Firstly, I gotta give a shout out to the Primitive Man and Hell Split EP. Now the reason this is a shout out, you might be thinking, this did get an 8 out of 10 on the channel. Yes, it did, and this EP is sticking with me a lot. I've been going back to it quite a bit, but the reason it's a shout out is because this EP, this split, released back in February. I got around to it late, so technically it did not release in the month of May, but I definitely want to shout it out, definitely want to put it on your radar. I feel like this release slipped under the radar, slipped under the noses of a lot of heavy metal listeners and even fans of this band. I still don't think it holds a candle to Primitive Man's release Caustic, which I do think is one of the best doom metal albums of the entire decade. I will go on paper saying that, but it's still a hellish, amazing split between the two. Primitive Man takes the first 2 tracks and Hell takes the final track. It allots to a little bit over 20 minutes and it's 3 tracks, so if you want to go check out this record, I highly suggest it, and it's in and out fast enough to where if you like it, you'll know you like it, and if you don't, well then, you didn't waste much time. Starting off the list is going to be Ringworms' album, Death Becomes My Voice. Just a hard-hitting metalcore album from one of the pioneers of the genre. They have roots in crossover thrash and hardcore punk and stuff like that, but they have been consistently dropping albums since their inception back in the, I believe, mid-80s it was. And this is just a nice release. I usually don't check out every single one of Ringworms' releases because they are very consistent, but this really is going to change that, and I'm very glad I checked this album out. It's very hard-hitting. It's kind of meat and potatoes by the genre standards, and there are going to be some people that only know modern metalcore that are going to feel like this sounds a little bit dated, but the crushing, punchy instrumentation and the mix that backs it just makes it all hit so hard in 2019 to where you don't really notice that this band has been around as long as they have. If you are interested in hearing one of the forefathers of the genre, still pretty much in their prime even though they have been around for a while, definitely check out this Ringworm release. It's very much worth your time if you're into crossover thrash, hardcore punk, or metalcore because it blends the three pretty seamlessly in just this flurry of madness. Next up is an album that is one of my favorite of the year thus far, right away, and is sticking with me so much, that being Full of Hell's album, Weeping Choir. It's so focused. It's so damn focused. It knows what it's wanting to do so well, this cauldron of just hatred and pain and agony and suffering, and the way they're blending it all together into just this massive power-violent mix of grindcore and sludge metal. They really did push their own boundaries, like on the track Armory of Obsidian Glass, which is almost 7 minutes long. There's one of the singles, and it's so sludge metal inspired, so heavy, extreme doom metal inspired, and the vocals on this album are absolutely monstrous. I do think this is their best record yet, and I will go on paper saying that because I know there's a lot of people that swear by some of their collaborations, such as the one they did with Merzabau, as well as their record Trumpeting Ecstasy, but I think this is a really nice album. I do think it's their best album, and it's definitely the one from Full of Hell that I enjoyed the most. I think they worked out a lot of the kinks and the kind of things in the cracks that I thought made their material seem a little bit one-dimensional on previous albums, like Trumpeting Ecstasy, which really made them seem a little bit like a one-dimensional grindcore and power violence band. They worked it out a lot on Weeping Choir, and I think it's coming together to make this amalgamation, but it is so focused, it knows what it's doing, it's so raw, it's so aggressive, it's so brutal, and I highly suggest you check it out. Next up, I gotta give a shout out to Injury Reserve's self-titled album, and the thing about Injury Reserve is I have enjoyed some of their previous material, but I just haven't had that last little bit of accessibility. Now, I like experimental music a lot more more than I like just non-experimental music. But the thing about it is I do feel like Injury Reserve, in their attempt to make some of their experimental music in the past, it didn't hit with me as much as it did with some people. I think this album is going to appeal to a lot of fans of Death Grips with some of that wonky instrumentation, and it's also going to appeal to regular trap listeners and regular mainstream contemporary hip-hop listeners that like more of that accessible sound. The flows on this album are very nice. The trio comes through in a very nice way. The production and mix is amazing, especially on tracks like Jailbreak the Tesla, which is amazing. Some of the hooks are a little bit weaker than I might have liked, but a lot of them are growing on me, like Gravy and Biscuits, that track, that chorus has grown on me quite a lot, and tracks like GTFU, I just can't get over. They're so good. It's so aggressive. I love that refrain that opens up the track, and the industrial beats that blend themselves in with the normal trap instrumentation just work so well. And while I do dig Injury Reserve sound in general, I do think this is their best effort to date, because even though I have enjoyed their previous material, it always just seems to be missing this little key thing that I just can't put my finger on that doesn't make me just be head over heels for it, so definitely check this one out. Shout out to Fleshgod Apocalypse with their album Veleno. It's so orchestral, it's so epic, it's one of the most orchestral symphonic death metal albums that I've heard this year and in a while, to be honest. Fleshgod Apocalypse, in my opinion, always has this like garish quality to them within their own symphonies that makes them drown in their own epicness to the point to where it comes off phony and almost a little bit laughable, but it's palpable on this album. It's great, it comes off amazing, they add a lot of depth. And even though some of the piano passages and some of those orchestral passages could have been a little bit more standout in the mix when it comes to an equalization and a volume, with the vocals and with the rest of the instrumentation, it's a very varied and distinctive album for the genre, and one that you definitely shouldn't miss out on. And while that's all of the albums that got 8 out of 10s or higher, there are a couple that were very close to getting 8 out of 10s or higher and might have gotten it if you count the 7.5s in that field, as well as some of the 7 out of 10s just growing on me just a little bit. So I gotta give a shout out to Amon Amarth's album Berzerker. This is kind of a meat and potatoes melodic death metal album and not the band's best in my opinion, but still holds up. Tyler, the Creator's album Igor, I know everyone's talked up and down about this release, but I just felt I'd throw it in here because it is very experimental and it is growing on me a little bit, and there are a lot of bangers on this track and a lot of weird abstract kind of jazzy R&B hits. Definitely worth at least checking out. Not to mention Denzel Curry's album Zoo, which is one of my most recent reviews, one of my most recent videos. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. It's just full of bangers. It is not as abstract, it's not as experimental and off the beaten path as some of the tracks and some of the compositional elements and some of the overall story elements and the way that the concept worked on Taboo. It's not any of that. It's not really close to Taboo. It's more of just a banger after banger track listing, and that's perfectly fine. I was impressed by a lot of the features. It actually got some people that I'm usually not that into, kind of made me more into them with their features. Everyone's given their all. The production's very nice, the flows are very nice, and the lyrics are pretty much Denzel Curry, as Denzel Curry always is, and his enigmatic personality and his overall just demeanor on the tracks really does add this flavor to it, really does add this spice to it, makes him sound very exciting and intriguing to listen to. But yeah, that's it for the video. What were some of your favorite albums of the year thus far? I definitely want to hear it. Subscribe if you're new to the channel here, and like this video if you enjoyed it. Smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads, and in the description you can find all of these reviews as well as the playlist to the previous installments of albums I liked. I'll talk to you guys next time, but until then, my name is Jay Morris, the Review Guy, and I'm signing off saying farewell.